for S. Cohilas. Your commissioners include, from District 1, Commissioner Ed Newsom. From District 2, Commissioner Victor Edwards. From District 3, Commissioner Clinton Johnson. From District 4, Commissioner Russell Gray. From District 5, Commissioner Gloria Gaines. And from District 6, Commissioner Anthony Jones. Also joining us is your County Administrator, Michael McCoy, Assistant County Administrator, Scott Addison, County Clerk, Juwan Ware, and County Attorney, Spencer Lee. Thank you for joining your Dougherty County Commission meeting.
Dougherty County work session for October 11th, 2021. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Good morning.
All right. For the record, everyone is present and in person. We've got a fair amount of business to get through today and a fair number of delegations. So let's try and move through things efficiently today. All right. First delegation, Thomas Brazel, Ariel Fristo, and Marcel Foster with Out of Hand Theater Atlanta. Georgia, our president, requests board support in pursuit of a CDC grant.
Excuse me,
Yes, sir.
on that first paragraph where delegation that has not been on the agenda, you have like two people that want to speak.
Okay.
Okay, I'm sorry, I thought,
No, I already have that in my notes.
okay, so it's gonna be, you gonna let them speak before?
After.
Okay. Sorry, Mr. Chair.
All right. So Thomas Brazel.
Hi, yes, hello?
Yes, sir.
Hey, thank you so much for having us. I believe Ariel and Marcel are here.
Good morning, this is Ariel.
Good morning.
Good morning, this is Marcel. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you. Yes, Chairman and District Commissioners, Dougherty, we thank you for allowing us to speak this morning to you about Out of Hand Theater's programming to build vaccine confidence through the arts. First, I was going to let Marcel and Ariel say a few things about this, and then I can go over in detail about briefly on what the program really is, what we would be asking to do. So Marcel, would you like to start?
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Thomas. So the CDC released a request for proposals exclusively for arts organizations to apply for funding to support the development of messages related to vaccine confidence. So along those lines, Out of Hand Theater is working to develop and submit a grant due at the end of the day this Wednesday related to developing digital performances to engage citizens in non-metro locations of Atlanta. So we're speaking with you all today related to Dougherty County, and we also have made some really positive contacts in Twiggs, Mitchell, Terrell, and Tift County as well. So that is the overview of our project. I'm going to hand it over to Ariel to speak a little bit more about what Out of Hand Theater does and any other additional points I might have missed. So thank you so much again, Thomas, and everyone for having us today.
Thank you, Marcel. Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for having us. This is Ariel Fristo. I'm the Artistic Director of Out of Hand Theater based in Atlanta. We use the tools of theater to work for social justice, and all of our programs combine art to open hearts, information to open minds, and small group conversation to process feelings and new information and make a plan for action. And we would love your input into this program and then later your help organizing showings. We're partnering with local leaders like you to develop a short theatrical film and a conversation guide around the COVID-19 vaccine. And this is very much in line with the rest of our work for the past 20 years. All of our work is based on racial justice and economic justice, and we regularly organize citywide potluck dinners with short plays and facilitated conversations on racism. And we're also currently working on programs on child sex trafficking prevention and violent domestic terrorism prevention around the state of Georgia. And I will turn it over to Thomas to tell you a little more about this project and the request.
Thank you, Ariel. Yes, so this initiative will start with interviews and focus groups to gather insights on concerns and barriers that citizens of your county are facing when assessing and considering the COVID vaccine. And we have a playwright who will be a screenwriter named Amina McIntyre, who will collaborate with civic and health officials and faith-based leaders in the county. And they will develop a digital performance script that will highlight the specific challenges that your community faces. And then after some months of testing, workshopping the script around this screenplay, we'll then produce the film and the digital performance, and then we'll come and live stream the creation directly to your community in these like faith-based organizations, areas, community centers, health centers, that were identified while we were gathering all this information and connecting with your community. And then after viewing this film, we will have discussions and talkbacks with the community to engage how did the film affect their thoughts and feelings and opinions towards the vaccine. And then public health officials will be on hand as well at these digital screenings of the film to answer any questions as well that anyone may have around the vaccine, how to access it, etc. It's because overall our goal is to increase vaccine confidence among all audiences that we engage with the film, but mainly it really is about connecting to your community specifically because we feel their voices have been silenced in this whole matter, and we really think this is a way through the arts is connecting and making people's voices heard and affecting for positive change.
All right?
Yeah. Hello?
Yes? Hello?
So yeah, so that's why we were trying to connect with partners like you. Just really it's about engaging together to work to build something together that we feel will help within the community with this art.
Thank you very much. Any comments or questions from the commission? Okay. Thank you very much for your presentation, and if y'all have any paperwork that's associated with your request, if you would just please make sure to submit that to the county administrator so they can be under further consideration. We thank you very much. We're going to move on to the next delegation. All right, Public Works Director Chuck Mathis is present to provide an update in response to the request to consider the installation of exercise pad fans at Robert Cross and Overlook Parks. Morning.
Good morning.
How are you doing?
Good morning. This morning, how's everyone feeling?
Very well.
Morning, Rev. Great.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Okay, we were asked to evaluate the potential of installing fans on some of the exercise equipment that we have in the county. And since this is not really something we normally do, I did consult a local mechanical engineer that's experienced in ventilation and HVAC, and we use them quite often as well in some of our other buildings. But for this application, he did mention that since this is not a waterproof structure, it's a shade structure, that an industrial type fan that is weatherproof, almost waterproof, would have to be installed. And due to the environment of it being an open air, 60 by 20 or something like that, that has to be significantly sized in order to be effective for what the purpose of it would be. He did give me a couple of suppliers that supply these kind of fans, and I did call a sales rep at one of these, and they had one that was water resistant. And I also talked to the representative that installed these solar shades to see if they've seen this and if they install these. The person that installed ours, our rep, has never installed these, and that's not an option that he can provide. I know that some other outdoor structures that are waterproof, such as there's a pavilion out at the Marine base, but it is shingled, and and it is a dried-in application where a normal ceiling fan would work. There would be also some other considerations we would have to do if we proceeded with this. These large industrial fans do weigh approximately 200 pounds apiece. We would have to have somebody evaluate the structure to make sure that the shade structure is significantly sound to hold two large industrial fans that have movement as well as not just static weight. Power availability to the structure at Robert Cross Park is not there right now. You would have to provide electrical from the facility itself. That's the closest power supply. And if we did it sort of like overlook, we would want to try to monitor these fans because they are significantly pretty expensive, and these are 8-foot diameter fans. So if you're thinking about an 8-foot blade, end of the blade, we would need to monitor that for vandalism, liability issues, stuff like that. So, camera. We do have cameras at Overlook, but we do not have cameras at Rock Cross Park. If you see on the, we did do two different things. So at Rock Cross Park, the best case scenario would probably be in the $62,000 range.
How much?
$62,000. That would be for structural evaluation, mechanical sizing, electrical, security, and then the fans themselves.
Best case scenario.
Right, and that's if the structure itself is sound enough.
Okay.
And then if we decided to make Overlook match the same, have the same amenity, that would be about another $37,000.
Okay. All right, any comments, questions from the commission?
Yes, one thing I like to comment on is that I want to appreciate you guys, and I'm going back to last week. All I ever wanted in the beginning is a cost. And then you bring it to the full commission. Now for me, it's not necessarily economical feasible, okay? But I should not have had the axe since January. So I appreciate the effort, I look at the numbers. But I want you guys to look at and say, hey, if one of us, no, forget one of us. If Victor Edwards, the commissioner for District 2, have a constituents ask for something. All I ask you guys to do, I want to have a good relationship. Man, I'm never going to tell you to do something by yourself. I know you can't do nothing by yourself. I can't do nothing by myself. But I like to look at the numbers. And then they say, hey, that's not feasible. So I don't want to build another pad. But then I know I sent a lot of examples from the Marine base. I sent you that. Yeah. Now I see the numbers. So again, when we talk about if the cameras are not there, and then we got to run a line, well, that's all I asked for in the beginning, but I want to see the numbers, okay? So I appreciate that. For me, as one commissioner, that's kind of high, because I just want 2 fans. And then because the structure is not at the height, and then the one that is at the Marine base, the 2 fans are coming from the angles. But again, I guess in the future, since we have these information and as we build provisions in the future, we might want to look at that, okay? To say, how can we do it? Just like now we're going to be doing something out at Putney. So we need to know people going to be outside. So if that's the case where the structure needs to be a little bit higher, all I be wanting is a foundation where we can do it and make the system better, okay? So I appreciate the effort. Thank you, Mr. Jeremy, as well as Chuck, for coming back with the numbers. Yes, sir.
Thank you. Commissioner Johnson?
Yes, sir. I have a quick question. I guess to the engineer, is it a bit of an overkill to have almost airplane propellers out there? That's huge fans. Can we come in a lot less than that?
Those are, like I said, after talking to the mechanical engineer to get the open airness that's of the, you don't have anything on the perimeter of the structure. So in order for everybody to get something,
Be able to feel
the air, then you need to have the larger industrial style fans.
Yeah, I understand I thought he was more so looking for that directional air fan, you know, that would be installed at 2 or 3 corners of the building. Not, I mean, I've seen these barn type style huge blade fans. I mean, they are very heavy and very expensive. I just thought we were looking for something a lot cheaper than that. I mean, not.
And originally, we thought it might be something like that too, but, you know, based on their professional experience of outdoor fanning, this is what they recommended to us.
And this is the mechanical engineer that made it work.
That's right. And see, those other directional style fans, the posts, the structure right now, it goes up, the posts are only about 9 foot high, and then it angles up to a peak. You're still gonna have those fans within a person's reach, I guess you would say. So that's another thing you would have to look at, liability on that. And the directional fans, with it being 60 foot long, you know, you might just be able to have a directional stream of air to 1 or 2 exercise equipment, pieces of equipment. And then the others, we would have to choose which ones we would be picking.
Okay.
Question?
Very good. Commissioner Gaines?
Just about the operation of such a machine. I mean, you got to cut it on and off. Who do you rely on to make sure it's on and off at the right time? And how is it cut on and off? I mean, and then where have you seen this kind of fan operating in an outdoor environment like that, with some way of controlling the on and off?
Well, I mean, most of these are, like I said, for industrial settings,
right?
Large warehouses, stuff like that. But we did think about that when we were considering this, and I know that this particular fan does have like a infrared kind of on-off switch, so if somebody's there, it turns on and lets go. Or we also thought about like almost like a timer. You turn it on 30 seconds or 30 minutes, and then if nobody is there to reset the timer, then it automatically cuts off.
So you could address that.
Yes, ma'am.
But the actual protection of the machine itself from vandalism and theft or whatever else.
That would be a concern.
Sure.
Thank you.
We recommend cameras.
Understood. Thank you all very much. Thank you all very much for that information. While y'all are here, I'm going to move on to the next item. President provide an update on the speed study conducted in the Southgate community and proposed solutions for Astoria Drive.
Mr. Chairman, fellow commissioners, thank you all for having us this morning. I talked with Mr. Dawson, president of the association, this weekend, and Ms. Frazier, the lady that came with the concerns on that morning of the commission meeting. We had a conversation, and in that conversation, we learned that the speed study was put on, was requested to go on Spelman and some of the other streets and Astoria. But what happened, the contractor, the city of Albany, put the speed study out on what appears to be the north end of Astoria, and it did not capture the information from the southern part of it below Spelman. So with that in mind, we know that we did not get a true, accurate reading of the traffic that people travel on Astoria. So it is our recommendation that we redo the speed study for Astoria and then get that information and see where it takes us.
Okay, very good. I know we have a couple of citizens here that wish to address the commission. Was it on this item? Yes, sir. Good morning. How are you doing?
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good to see you.
Pretty much summed up what
Okay.
I was going to say. I noticed when they brought this speed study out on Tuesday, it stayed out all day Wednesday.
Yes, sir.
And Thursday morning, a street sweeper swept the one up on Spelman. And they came out to pick it up at the same time.
Yes, sir.
They picked up the one on Astoria. That's why he said they're gonna redo the study because it wasn't
Okay.
done long enough or in an appropriate way to me, you know. And the place where they put the speed cables at was not the area where the speeding is going on pretty much.
Okay.
Like Chuck just said, you know, it's on
So
the.
we had a little bit of a communication gap is what it sounds like.
Okay, so.
Yes, sir.
I asked, if the speed study come back with almost a negative report, then I would request that we get a four-way stop sign placed there at the intersection of Spelman and Astoria. I know that's probably a lot cheaper than the speed bumps, but it's got more complications to it. We talked about that back in 2016 when we put the speed bump on Barnaby. And the excuse that I received then was, you got people living out here that's been going through that intersection for 40, 50 years. So they're not gonna be conscious of that stop sign being placed there because they would go through that out of habit and not stop. I don't think that's a situation that would occur. People can spell stop, most of them, you know, and you got a big sign still now, you know, so you got to follow traffic laws even if you go in another neighborhood that you're unfamiliar with, you know. So I think that would be the next best option other than the speed bump.
Okay. All right. That sounds like good information, and it sounds like we've connected a few dots and we have a multi-step process here. Do we have another citizen that was here to speak on that issue as well? Thank you very much. Did you have anything else, my friend?
No.
Thank you very much. I appreciate you coming here.
Thanks.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Yes, I'm here as a concerned citizen in that neighborhood.
Yes, sir.
And I don't want to step on the commission, my president's footsteps or his heels, but what caught my attention was that I read the article, and the article says that the effort to slow down traffic in the Southgate neighborhood hit a speed bump that erupted during a Dougherty County Commission meeting that detoured into an employee's complaint against the commission. That caught my attention because I've been here, you may not have been, you weren't here, but when I come, I always pray about unity and coming together as a commission to work for the efforts of the community. And I'm trying to find out, I'm sure it's none of my business, you'll tell me it's none of my business, but we are his constituents. And if we complain to him and we send him back to the commission, we do expect, like any of you living in a neighborhood, if you have a complaint, who can we register to? Only the commission, okay? And I don't know what the proper way of addressing all these things where you got your administrator, county administrator, or whatever it is. But like I said, it should not be something that I have read in the paper like that. And like you said, it's spilled over in the public. And now it's in the public. So I'm here and I got concerns about the speed bumps. The strips that you put across the street. One thing is that people will see those things and they will slow down, all right? But if you have a barrier across there, and I heard somebody said a nuclear option about the speed bump, but those are the ways to slow people down, because all of us, you drive and maybe driving 80 miles an hour sometimes. No coppers around, so you keep on driving. That's the way we are. And that's what happens in our neighborhood. And this is a small neighborhood, and we have had problems with people running into people's houses and their land. So you cannot do it like a day and a half to study because people slow down then, and when that's up, they're back to their regular ways. So that's important for us to understand. The other thing is that I was here the last time, and I heard the apology from our county commissioner about why it wasn't taken care of from February to, I think I was here in late August or September. And that's a long time for us to be waiting for an answer for something, if we request something. And so these are my complaints, and as I said, I pay taxes here. I'm not entitled to anything. That's a word that goes out a lot. But I pay taxes. So if I address something to Victor, I expect an answer, not 9 months in advance. Okay, Commissioner? Okay,
Thank you very much.
I do have one.
Yes, Commissioner Gaines?
Is there agreement on where the speed detectors will be placed this time? Are we clear on where exactly they will be placed and for how long they will be there?
Every other study we've done has been probably about 48 hours. I do have the time frame here, and it looks 2 days to 2.5 days.
Okay.
That is, we leave all our traffic engineering studies and recommendations through the City of Albany's traffic division, which is our, our intergovernmental group. They determine a majority of that with their recommendations, but we can instruct them if to deviate from their normal practices. Now, Mr. Chuck did go out there. He knows the location, so I can give the city exactly. I put it on the block that was requested.
Did you all do that in consultation with the citizens, because they kind of have some idea of what the speeding habits are out there?
Well, the request letter from Ms. Claudia Dawson told us what blocks.
Okay.
And that's the blocks.
Let me ask a different question in support of where I think this is going. And I would suspect the neighbors would know better than anybody else. Are there certain days of the week that are worse than others? And I don't know if it's, some neighborhoods, I've got a guy in my neighborhood that drives a Corvette, and every Friday afternoon, he drives as fast as can be, and it makes everybody mad and everybody upset in my neighborhood. And he does it every Friday afternoon. I'm curious about that question.
Let me say this. There's no specific day, but that's out in the country. That's out.
Yes, sir.
And, those four-wheelers are out there, and those guys with bikes, and you see them in the city here. They are running all, there's no specific time. Whenever they get ready to ride, they ride.
Can we make sure that we have a really, really good sample size? Y'all hear what I'm saying? Like, not just the guided tour that the city may want to take in delivering our services on this study, but like, let's get a really, really good sample size. That would be really helpful.
The weekend is worse.
The weekends are worse?
Yes, sir.
That's what I was curious about.
If you wait like right now, Saturday night, Sunday evening, they cut donuts all the way across. Martin Luther King in front of the car.
In front of the park,
Unfortunately, I don't think speed tables are going to stop that behavior.
Yeah. No, but a DCP officer in a green uniform might.
I agree.
We had an officer there up until maybe a week or so ago that was sit there on the weekend to keep everything down. They got real familiar with that real quick, so they cleared out. And then the officer disappeared, they back us in.
Yeah, but it would just be great to do this in consultation with the citizens who know what, when, and where.
Yep.
Okay?
Very good.
Hey, one other comment, we tell our folks, I tell my folks in District 6, if you see something, say something. Okay, we have these citizens coming before us, they've come before us several times, they've seen something, they've said something, but we've done nothing. So I'm just kind of I'm in a position here that to say that whatever we do,
this next time around that that Mr. Dawson, whenever you go out to get ready to do this speed study, that Mr. Dawson and whoever else has eyes and ears on this thing go out there with whoever's going to do the study so that you can walk through, so we can make sure that this time around that we don't have any slip-ups, hiccups, or whatever you might have. Then in the meantime, as we move toward the speed study, I think it's behooving of our folks to say that just in case this thing doesn't turn out right, or doesn't turn out the way that we can make a difference. You've had 2 accidents out there, so there's a problem in that area. Now you're telling me you got these 4-wheelers, and they've taken over the city because it was made the front page of the paper. So then you got these folks out there with babies and everything. So it's just a matter of time. What we have here is accident looking for a place to happen, and we don't want it to happen out in Southgate. So what I think we ought to do is make sure that when we do this, make sure we know where everybody is, make sure where we want the boundaries are. And then in case of the speed study doesn't just come out just right, then we need to already have an alternative in place, so that we say if we don't have A, then we'll do B, and then possibly C. But we need a resolution out in the Southgate subdivision, not only in Southgate, where we have these type problems. So certainly, as we come back, we're going to come back with a solution for what y'all's problems are. I'm going to just leave that. I know I see our public works director out there, our engineers out there, and involve whoever else you need to come into, so that we can bring a resolution to this, and you all don't have to take time out to come back again on the same thing. That's all I have to say about this.
Thank you all very much. Thank you very much.
Your question was the one I asked Saturday when I met with Ms. Frazier and some of the others out there Saturday morning. I wanted to know, when does this happen? And I had that same inclination you have. And I just want to share with the board my findings, and this is why we're doing the study. Ms. Frazier, who walks that neighborhood every day, she was the one that saw them put down the study devices and everything, and she noted that they were being put up on the north end of Astoria, and that's what she told me. And it wasn't being put down on the southern end below Spelman, where she lives at, and where some of the traffic problems are. And my question was the same thing: when does this happen? And as Mr. Dawson said, it typically, their answer to me was, it happens basically on the weekends and on days when the park, Robert Cross Park, has lots of activity. If you've ever been out there, there could be hundreds of cars out there, and people just tend to drive off through Southgate at that time, and many of them will speed. Because I was thinking the same thing: are these speeders visiting somebody out there, or living out there, or they part of that? And if it was so, as a neighbor, I said to them, it would be incumbent upon you all to go talk to your neighbor and let them know that their visitors are speeding through your neighborhood, and to ask them to slow it down. But they told me that it was just basically people that come in and out, and it was happening there on that southern end of Astoria, where traffic could come in from Barnaby and come down Spelman and go up that area and not be counted by the monitor that had been set on the northern end. So this is why we suggested that and made the recommendation that we redo the case study to depict more of what the traveling public goes on Astoria. And so, yeah, I had that same question. And my answer to them too was also, help us help you all. If you see something, say something. I said the same thing to them, Commissioner, that the law enforcement, I know Chief Johnson, Chief Irvin would be glad to get information on when does the speeding happen out there, what days of the week, what time of the day, and they could help by having law enforcement patrolling more. And I too brought the incident about Robert Cross Park, the problem we were having out there before we got security to be out there as much as they've been. That we had those bikers and others running through the park rampantly while people and kids out there playing. But since we put security out there, they hadn't been able to catch anybody, but they've deterred them from coming that way. And the same thing could happen on Astoria with citizen help, with the county help and all, we working together. If we don't, if law enforcement don't ticket them and don't stop them or arrest them, they can deter. And that problem will be solved. But if the speed study does not come back warranting speed humps, yeah, we're already working on another solution. We're thinking, as Mr. Dawson was talking about, doing something else. So they have our word that we're working at it. We're gonna do everything we can.
Well, excuse me, Mr. Chuck.
Yes.
Okay, if the speed study does not come back and it says the same thing as the last answer was 90% of the people going under 35 miles per hour. Going back to what the county attorney said, that it's a local policy, it's our policy. So what is your recommendation so what I asked you guys last week was, if it does not meet that, you, Mr. Jeremy, you hollered out and said it was $8,000, right? So again, that's what I was looking for, the recommendation on how much it's gonna cost, or how many, Jeremy, you would suggest, how many tables that need to go out there in that location. You've had 90% of the people are going under 35. It was not the 90%, it was the 10% of the 2 people that had the accident that ran into the lady yard. Now, so that's where we are. It's not necessarily need to be, you know, if you want to be diplomatic about it, about having a speed study, but you see, you already know the problem. So Commissioner Gaines stated last week, what is the solution? We know that if them speed tables are out there, like Pastor Williams said, they're gonna stop. They're gonna slow down and go with them speed tables. So again, we're sort of running around in a circle when we know no matter how long the request from the citizens, we would like to have speed tables. For me, how much it's gonna cost, and for Mr. Jeremy, where can we place them? How many it will take? Now that's kind of where I'm looking for. Now going back to this commission, come up with the cost, bring it to us, let us vote it up or down. You hollered out a figure last week, it was $8,000, right? So
Let me ask this question to Commissioner Edwards' point. If I remember correctly, we've got a process that we go through, and sometimes it's frustrating, but it is there for a reason. It's, one, you have the speed study, which sometimes those are helpful, sometimes they're frustrating because you may not, the same people may not speed all the time when the study's going on, which is in this issue. And then secondarily, you also have the city that controls, like we have to contract with the city to do that. Then, let's say it does warrant, or it meets the warrants. Then you have to get consent of a certain proportion of the neighbors, because otherwise, and I've seen this happen, you got a lot of folks, everybody may not always be in agreement on that, because some folks hate speed bumps. And then there's the secondary consideration of whether or not it impacts other safety issues, which I appreciate this as being the son of a firefighter, especially those areas of the outlying county that don't have the best hydrant service and that have higher ISO ratings. That makes it an issue in terms of getting fire delivery out there. So I know we've got a process, and then what is the process in terms of getting consent from the neighborhood? Can you remind me of that? I just don't remember off the top of my head.
Right, so the policy says the first step is for them to request a study.
Okay.
If the study comes back, it depends on what range that 85 percentile speed is. If it's
Okay.
30 or 35 to 40, 60% of the people within 500 feet of a speed table have to approve or agree that they want it. If it's a small, if the 85th percentile is not as severe, like 30 to 35, then with a waiver, you can get 80% people to approve it. And that is all done by the person that's brought the issue, the person in the neighborhood, so it'd be the neighborhood association. They would be responsible.
Obviously, it's a very involved neighborhood, so that's
right. That's
easily ascertainable.
But the policy also says, all right, the speed speed table can't be but X number of feet from a stop sign. It has to be X number of feet from a curve so that they can visually see it beforehand. And it needs to be, you know, this range between them. So the policy also does dictate the design of where and when and how many. Of course,
Are those based upon engineering standards that are best practices?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir. And so, you know, briefly, I did do a quick layout. If we did all those, do the roads of concern that we are talking, you know, just for, let's see, you know, Newcastle, Astoria, and Spelman, that would be $42,000 for all of them. That was just a quick number based on what we've paid before and based on, you know, the design, based on, you know, the separation and distances.
So that'd be 10, you have $42,000 for 10 speed tables. Is that the 10 on Astoria?
No, Astoria would take 5. So
Okay, so the street, the one we talking about is Astoria. So Mr. Dawson them talking about 5 speed bumps on Astoria. That's it. Don't go nowhere else.
But the original letter told us to study all those roads.
Okay,
So that's
well,
why-
so now I'm sort of taking it, they want, the problem is Astoria. Okay, now I don't want to get out off the path. See, I understand you guys. They don't. The question is, they are requesting on Astoria. Am I right, Mr. Dawson? That's it. Don't worry about nobody else. Astoria. Okay. So we need 5 for Astoria. With your background, is that going to be sufficient for Astoria? Now, we don't have to put 5, do we? We can put 4. Can't we? Come on now. I mean, I'm talking to you. You can say it again.
It's not.
Okay, say what you just said again, Mr. Jeremy. We can put what we like, correct? Okay, so we don't have to have 5. So what is my cost for 3? So I don't know, Mr. Chairman, go ahead.
I'm gonna say this, and I say this very respectfully. We have a policy, and then we deviate from that policy. Then somebody, say we put 1, put 2, the policy calls for 3, 4, 5. As the person that gets served with the anti-litem notices on negligence cases, I'm the one, the sheriff's deputy comes to my office and hands me the lawsuit. And I read all the lawsuits where we get sued. I don't want to receive the lawsuit that says we intentionally disregarded our own policy that was based on best practices and engineering standards. So I say that with all respect, and I also understand and appreciate what Commissioner Edwards is. He wants a practical solution. I get that. My gut is that we need to get answers to these preliminary questions before we put the cart before the horse. And it seems like we have bridged the communication gap that existed between the neighbors' complaints, the services provided by the city, and I also know that and I've seen it before, this is part of the problem we go through, and I watched it after the tornadoes of 2017. All of our home inspections were provided by the city because we have to contract with the city, so we have to deal with that. We have to deal with their staffing shortages, their COVID staffing shortages, and it doesn't make it any better for me or Commissioner Edwards, Commissioner Jones, or anybody when we're trying to get answers quickly as we should. But it does seem like we've connected some of these dots, and I do think we need to get that information back, and that way we can make some decisions. That's what I would submit.
One final point for me, please.
Commissioner Gaines?
Thank you. I have seen instances where they've actually had to remove those speed tables because that may not have been the best solution. While we were asked to study that, I think the better question is probably how can we stop the speeding that's being experienced there? What is the best solution, rather than presupposing a solution of speed bumps? Because they don't always work the way, especially if you're in and out of that neighborhood every day, and you've got to go, you normally drive 30 miles an hour. And you got to stop every day at the speed bump and that sort of stuff. It's great for people who are just coming through there once in a while. But if you have to do it every day, it's not always comfortable to do that. So I would, while they did ask us to look at speed bumps, our thought process should be, what is the best solution to the problem? Is it the speed bumps, or is there a better solution for this community? So I don't know how you fit that question into what has been asked of you, but I would suggest that you consider that.
Yes, ma'am. And we do that on occasion with the, I mean, it's a traffic calming policy. It's not a speed bump calming
That's right.
policy. So actually in the policy itself, it has several different things that you can do, like bump outs or mini roundabouts, which all of them have, you know, are generated based on the speed study. That's the foundation of the policy, basically.
Yeah.
In this instance, it probably is the most economical. You know, if there are some drainage issues, which, you know, if the speed table that would potentially block drainage or something like that, you could go to one of these other options. So there are other options, and we do keep that in the back of our mind if we see that speed table wouldn't work.
Yeah, what is the best mitigation for the problem is the question.
I think the county's caused this problem by maintaining our roads so well, because potholes are just as effective at calming traffic, and they don't cost a thing.
Okay, but when you come back with that, at least be in a position to address the other potential mitigations. Thank you.
All right, very good. Thank you all for your
Appreciate
hard work. Thank you. Thank you, my commissioners. Any other delegations that did not previously sign up that wish to be heard at this time? All right, let's move on. Zoning, Lanier Engineering, Inc., 21-056, request to rezone 1.45 acres from C5 Office Institutional Residential District to C3 Commercial District. Property is located at 2507 Fleming Road. The property owner is the Bayside Storage LLC. The applicant is Lanier Engineering, Inc., District 6. The Planning Commission recommends approval. Angel Gray, Planning Manager, will address. The public hearing and action are scheduled for October 18th, 2021. Mr. Forgy.
Good morning, Chairman, Commissioners. Good morning. These two cases, this and the next, are related. The first is a zoning request to change the zoning from C5 to C3. This will allow for the construction of a storage unit development. Storage units require a special approval in any zone that they're permitted, so they are permitted in C3, but the next case will then give special approval to build them. So the first being the rezoning. The Planning Commission heard it last week and approved it. If you have any questions about the rezoning, I'd be happy to entertain them.
All right, any comments, questions? Mr. Forgy.
Just to comment that the special approval, I mean, they already have storage buildings there, so on the next street, so it'll just complement what's around the block.
Mr. Forger, does all storage have to come before special approval? All storage?
Yes, sir. Depending on, well, it's not allowed in every zone, but where it's allowed, it does require special approval. So we can look at the traffic impacts of it and other impacts that, even though the zone permits it, the particular location may have an issue. So it gives us the opportunity and the commission the opportunity to evaluate it on the specific location.
And it's the same company that already has storage?
Not there, I don't believe so. Do they have it at all?
Yeah.
There's some storage buildings around the corner. I don't know who owns them, but then it's just like you said, it's just one complements the other.
Okay. The office is not going to be on the location of this. The office is located close by. I'm not sure if they operate a storage facility there. I believe they do.
Okay, I just know Commissioner Jones had some problems in the adjacent lot with the, what was that, the junkyard?
Yeah, we're good. We're good on everything out there now. Everybody's, I think we're in good shape out there, but I don't see where this is gonna be a problem.
Yes, sir.
All right. Very good. Next, Lanier Engineering, Inc., 21-057 requests special approval to allow the special use of self-storage mini warehouses in the C3 Commercial District. The property is located at 2507 Fleming Road. The property owner is Bayside Storage LLC. The applicant is Lanier Engineering, Inc., District 6. Planning Commission recommends approval. Mr. Ford, this is connected obviously with
Yes, sir.
number 4A.
Yes, sir. I'm sorry to blend the two together, but obviously they are
You
related.
did lump them together, didn't you?
Pardon me?
You did lump them together, didn't you? Or were you talking about both of them? I heard you mention something.
I was talking about both of them because some of the questions overlap the two. But the first action is for the rezoning, which will allow the use, but only with special approval. So the second action is then special approval. And when we come to you with the public hearings, we'll go over two nearly identical slideshows of the same case. One is for zoning and one will be for special approval. But without the rezoning, they can't ask for the special approval. So they're both required. If you have any other questions.
All right, any other comments, questions, concerns on that item? All right, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Mr. Forgy. Additional business recommendation to accept the proposed resolution providing for the assessment and collection of an annual ad valorem tax to provide funds for the payment of the principal and interest in Dougherty County School District General Obligation Sales Tax Series 2021 bond in the amount of $28,565,000. Mr. Coleman. Good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman.
Morning.
Members of the Commission, thank you for hearing me this morning. We've done this before. Those of you who've been here a while, I'm here on behalf of the school board. You may remember that last November, the public authorized a new e-splosh for the school system, and in that authorization, they authorized the issuance of up to $50 million in bonds. The system is elected to issue considerably less than that. This works exactly like the one we all have, except it's called e-splosh, as you know. And there is a tax backup in the event that a city or a county, or in this case a school board, doesn't collect enough in the sales tax, which is bottom would have to fall out of everything for that to happen. But nonetheless, the security of the bond requires a pledge for you to collect the taxes as you do every year. When the county assesses their taxes, they've included the tax millage set by the Dougherty County School Board. So that's it. The projects are typical things that we have done. I hope you have noticed the tremendous improvement on schools in Albany over the recent years. Monroe High in particular comes to mind, but we're going to improve the school, all the schools, administration, athletic fields, and facilities, computer equipment, buy buses, the typical things that school systems do. Mr. Chairman, does anybody have any questions?
Thank you. Any comments or questions for Mr. Coleman?
Number 3, when it says in the event the sales tax is insufficient to pay.
Sir?
Can you explain number 3, please? Under the last, now therefore.
In the event that the sales tax is insufficient?
Yes.
Yeah. That's in all of them. I venture to say I haven't seen your documents, but I bet it's in there when Dougherty County did it as well. And that's an assurance to the bondholder that if for some reason that our community did not collect the amount of sales tax that they say they are going to when they started the process of issuing bonds, that we will levy an ad valorem tax to cover the difference.
Okay.
So, as far as I know, that's never happened. Certainly never happened here, but I don't recall it ever happening anywhere as well. So, but it is something that enhances security, enables the county and the school board to issue bonds at a more favorable interest rate than if it's just a pledge of the sales tax. And so that's what that is.
All right. These are trying times, just checking.
Sir?
So these are trying times, just checking.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
These bonds will be priced on Wednesday, the county manager thought it best that we come here today so that you can have any questions, but it'll be on your agenda, is that correct? Next Monday with the bonds as they're priced out, so we'll know what the debt service schedule is.
Thank you very much, Mr.
Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you. All right,
Before you leave,
Commissioner Gaines?
all we're doing is agreeing to collect the taxes, right?
Ma'am?
Essentially, what we're doing is agreeing to collect the taxes, right?
Yes.
Okay. We'll do
And
that.
as I understand it, it's really a ministerial function.
It is. You know,
We really don't have
Yeah.
any discretion.
No, sir. There are cases about this.
I know.
And we have had one commissioner in the distant past who liked to debate this question from time to time, but it is a required ministerial duty of the county commission.
Right.
Right. Understood. Thank you very much. All right, recommendation to approve the alcohol application from Maury's Grocery Liquor, Inc., Betty J. Hamburn, licensee, DBA County Line Liquor at 4030 Moultrie Road for packaged liquor, beer, and wine. The Albany Dougherty Marshal's Office recommends approval. Marshal Nathaniel Norman, Business and License Department will address. Good morning.
Good morning. Yes, this is an application for transfer at 4030 Moultrie Road for liquor, beer, and wine. We recommend approval.
All right. Any comments or questions?
You said a transfer.
Yes, sir.
Explain that for me.
The old applicant passed on, and the license is transferred to the relative.
Okay, I knew that the person that passed away out there. Okay.
Yes, sir.
All right. Thank you very much.
Yes, sir.
All right. Recommendation to accept the Hazard Mitigation Grant Program Project 4297-0008-R Albany Dougherty County Acquisition Project Phase 1 Award in the amount of $3,327,308.48. Mr. McCoy and Ms. Collier-Bowling.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. We're recommending approval. This is a result of the 2017 storms.
Right.
We had many homeowners that were affected, primarily in the Radiant Springs area, apply to have their homes purchased by the federal government. And so this is a mitigation effort by the federal government because these homes are in the flood plain and are likely to be damaged again in the future. And so they make this program available to buy those homes, to remove future liability and payments for those homes by the federal government. So this is phase 1. We have 18 properties here. There's a phase 2 with additional properties that will be forthcoming. We have Ms. Bowling on the line. She'll share more information. As you can see, we have a responsibility of about $499,000, and that would come out of the Special Services District. So, Ms. Bowling, would you like to share more information?
Ms. Bowling?
Yes, good morning, Chairman. Good morning, to the board and everyone that's in attendance. Basically, you know, Mr. McCoy has done a thorough job of explaining. So basically, you know, that he's correct that the program is hazard mitigation, and we have 18 properties that we're going to be moving forward with. We will have 11 more properties that will be coming up that are still in the environmental clearance phase and the Section 106 phase. So with these 18, we will be moving forward with acquiring and performing demolition on those 18 homes. And those 18 homes, the location where they were located will stay in perpetuity as green space. So you know, the county will have to maintain the lots on which the houses were sitting once they're demoed as green space. And I just wanted to point out that there are, you know, some other options that I kind of discussed with DEMA, and I'll discuss more with Paul as time goes on in terms of the type of green spacing, you know, that can be used, some things that, you know, we can possibly do in the community that would still keep it as green space.
And this will have, obviously, an economic impact because these properties are coming off the tax roll.
I have several questions. All right. Number one, how did we determine these were flood-prone properties? Were they all been flooded before, or there's a report of flooding on these properties?
Yeah, when they do applications, they look at repetitive properties that have repetitive damage, repetitive loss. Rather.
So far as Glen is repetitively flooded by a lake or backwater, I mean, I don't understand if they're not near a river or water source, where's the flooding coming from? And should that problem be fixed versus purchasing the homes?
Commissioner, I think, I could be wrong, but I think all of these homes are in the Radium Springs floodplain.
No, sir.
Yes, they are.
No, ma'am, they're not.
Yes.
Not Forest Glen or Partridge Drive.
They're not.
Yeah, there's some in Radium Springs and there are some.
There are some, but not all.
Right.
So, so this is
Page 89.
This is vetted at the federal level.
Right.
And a lot of these, so it's not our determination locally, and so we were told that if they were in a flood zone, floodplain.
I'm not, Commissioner Gray, I'm not, one more second.
Yeah.
So who received the money for the home? The bank, the people who live there, like this 119,000 or this 183,000, 175,000, who received that acquisition cost? The homeowner?
The homeowner. Yes.
So
the homeowner, because the homeowner chose to walk away from the property.
Okay.
And say I've had repetitive loss. I no longer want to live here, and this is the communication they had with the state and the federal government.
And they profited from this, somewhat.
Well, I wouldn't characterize it
No.
A lot of these folks are in a bad situation. Now, a lot of them have been waiting since 2017. Some of these folks are in foreclosure.
Okay.
The program might not even help them. These people have suffered.
So FEMA program, once you buy through. Yes, ma'am.
Some of the houses are even in foreclosure.
Okay. So with FEMA, on some of the homes, once you purchase it through FEMA buy program, you cannot rebuild on that land.
Correct.
So I thought we as a commission thought that using the land bank would help us keep our neighborhood strong. So these are people making the decision to go this route? The land bank can't purchase these homes?
These were individuals.
Because of the repetitive flooding, the repetitive loss, the federal government says we're not gonna put money back into this property. So in other words, if you retain the properties and you maintain to stay in there, and each time something happens with it, then whatever insurance doesn't cover, then the government, FEMA has to substantiate and assist and help with costs. So once they make once the homeowner makes the decision to vacate and say, I'm tired of dealing with the loss, I don't want to stay here anymore. And because there is an issue, it remains green space. Now, if there was an issue where it was just a house that was damaged and the house was getting repaired by CDBG-DR funds through HUD, then that's different because the house is not in an area that's considered a repetitive loss, and it just keeps getting damaged, and money keeps being put back in. And so that's the difference. So all houses that, I just want to say that too, all houses that get damaged by in the process of storms or in the process of flooding may not be homes that are in areas or communities that have repetitive loss. Just like the 55 properties that we have, that's under the CDBG-DR rehab and reconstruction program.
I think I actually exactly understand Commissioner Johnson's question and concern, because this was something that was very important to me. I think your question highlights the distinction between the hazard mitigation program and the CDBG-DR money, which is more flexible.
Yeah.
And I assumed when we were talking that all of these homes were in the Radium Springs area, but they're not. Commissioner Johnson very correctly pointed out, there's some that are on Forest Glen Drive and Westover, there's some in Blue Springs, and as I understand it from when we went through this process back in 2017, there's hazard mitigation grant dollars which are like strictly dictated by a certain program. Then there's like CDBG DR money that is more flexible. And so I'm assuming these are like the most vulnerable homes with people that have suffered repetitive losses, and then they're getting a fair market value buyout of their property, which I will say, I recognize that that does reduce those homes from being on the tax roll, but in terms of what it does to the value of the homeowners that have been living across the street from a house with a blue tarp for 4 years, that probably helps a lot too. And there are a lot of folks on.
But that's not quite the case on these. When I look at
on Skywater and Azalea and
well, Skywater and Azalea, yes.
Yeah, I understand not
and
all
I
of
can't
them.
argue those, but
Yeah.
I'm with Commissioner Johnson. When I look at the tax record on 423 Forest Glen, that house has been sold and repurchased since 2017. So if the original owner, when the damage occurred, filed for this, but the house has been sold, somebody took on that liability. You know, Forest Glen may have been damaged in the 2017 storm. Partridge, I know that's in a low area. I know USGS just updated their flooding maps based on extensive work that they did, but that's also right near, you know, adjacent to some of the flood mitigation ditches. It's just a low area, but it's been occupied. Neither of these houses are in disrepair. Neither are vacant. And so I question, you know, the validity of taking something that's habitable now that people are living in and taking care of and turning it into a vacant property in the middle of a residential neighborhood that, you know, it's not an eyesore. Nobody's complained about it. And it seems to me, especially if you've sold your house since the storm, could you be tearing down somebody else's house right now?
I'm with you all on that.
Do we have any discretion?
Well,
do we have any discretion, or is that dictated by the federal government?
So this is a voluntary program.
Yeah, they had the request to be on.
And I've seen some of these homes, beautiful. Nothing wrong with them, but they qualified for this program. They said, hey, I want out and I want the federal government to buy my house.
Right.
Yeah. And they qualified, and here we are.
Yeah. So 504 Champion is already demolished. So, I mean, why is it on the list then? Like 504 Champion Avenue under Paradise Village.
Because if the owner, it could have been it can be where the owner, if they already started a demo, the owner, or if it was so badly damaged and he had the demo, the owner could say originally in the beginning of the process. You gotta remember, this has been going on for several years now. You know, and the owner can say, because I think there were a few lots, and the owner says, I don't even want the lot. I'm done. I want to sell. I want to sell the lot as well. I've torn it down, and now I want to sell the lot. You know, maybe they want to recoup.
One more question. So the money that we purchased, the money we used to tear down Paradise Village itself, that trailer park, we couldn't have gotten reimbursed?
I'm not familiar with anything about the trailer park. That maybe before my time.
That was another mitigation program.
But we paid for it.
The federal government paid for that, and yes.
But is it
We got
double dipping?
reimbursed on that.
Yeah.
We had to go through. I remember going through the special approval process for us to be able to get reimbursed.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Ms. Georgia.
But on these properties here, you know, I'm in the same room with Commissioner Gray on these rooms and Commissioner Johnson. I mean, the federal government, I mean, we have a right to question the federal government. I mean, we know more about what's going on locally than the federal government do. And these houses on Forest Glen and Partridge, you know, I have a problem with those properties. I do, and anybody else should have a problem with these purchases. So what we need to do is we need to look back on these, and again, question the federal government. Why are these properties there? Why are these properties there? I hear Commissioner Gray says about a ditch. That's not enough information to be wanting to put to have these properties taken off of the tax roll. We're suffering as it is from our tax index, and folks. So we can question the federal government. I think we should question them about things that we know that there's a discrepancy on, and then and let's look back on that again. I don't know what you all need to do to get that.
Yes, question.
And I also just want to say that the program the program, the county would manage it, but the program in itself is between the owner and FEMA when they made applications with the federal government.
Doesn't mean it's not
Well, I see that. I see your point. I see your point there. But I'm on Gasser Road. It floods out there. So you know what do I do? You know.
Right. But I guess they look at it as if you choose, you don't want to keep spending your money and dealing with the law and keep going through the same repetitive thing, having to fix it, 5 times in 10 years. Then they give you that option to say, okay, I don't want to. I don't want to keep staying in this house anymore, and I want to sell it. And that's basically how it works.
Yeah, and I will say that we've come under a lot of pressure because these folks have been suffering since 2017, and some of them aren't in a financial position.
Is that Congressman, Representative Bishop, Congressman Bishop? I got one. He's been calling Mr. Bishop's office and the federal government and everybody else, because they're saying I got mortgages and house got damaged and it got foreclosed. I don't have to fix it, and it's just.
So are we talking about these?
My question, Mr. Chair.
All right, let me do this. I'm gonna try and organize our discussion on this a little bit better. I think Commissioner Gaines was next. Before we go there, let me just. Was it Commissioner Gray?
No.
Commissioner Gray, then Commissioner Gaines. I want to ask a clarifying question, though. Do we or do we not have a say in what the federal government does with this money? Because that is, I recognize we may not necessarily always agree with the federal government, and I'm one of the largest supporters of that concept because it's why it costs them $75 to screw in a light bulb and everything else. But that precise question is what I want an answer to. Do we have any say in how this program is administered?
No, this is a mitigation program, and that's what it does. It mitigates through acquisition and demolition. They also have other HMGP programs under mitigation. For example, we had one that does planning. We had the one that does the siren. That's also an HMGP grant. But it was for us to put the sirens out in the unincorporated county, which we're doing now. So they have different programs inside of the federal money on the FEMA side and on the HUD side. That the funding is set up for.
That answers my question. That answers my question very, very well. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
All right, Commissioner Gray and then Commissioner Gaines.
So, do we have any ability to not pay the county match on this until we get some answers? Because I'm not making any accusations whatsoever. It doesn't pass my sniff test right now because I live in that neighborhood. I know those houses, they're not eyesores. There are plenty in that neighborhood I'd love to see torn down instead of these. I do understand one may be subject to some, local flooding issues during, high rain events. The other one on Forest Glen has terrible drainage. That street floods quite a bit. A city problem, not a county problem. I understand that. But do we have any ability to ask, because my fear is these are going to get torn down. It's going to go to some type of overgrown green space, and it's just going to be a code enforcement problem that nobody wants to live next to.
We have to maintain it.
Exactly.
Right,
for the city.
Right now, Right now, it's set up to, right now, it's set up to where the county is not gonna be paying the match. The match is gonna be paid by the homeowner out of the funds that they receive.
All right. Commissioner Gaines, go after you next.
There you go.
You next.
I ain't
Gaines.
letting them walk away scot-free now.
All right, thank you, Ms. Bowen. Commissioner Gaines?
Yes, sir.
Well, since my question may have been answered, and that is that we don't have any authority whatsoever in this matter. But it seems to me to make sense that if the circumstances have changed since 2017 or whenever the application was made, between the condition of the property in 2017 or whenever it occurred, and now if the property's status has changed, that should require some consideration on somebody's part. But obviously, it does not. Am I right?
Is that question for me, Commissioner Gaines? Is that question for me?
Yes, ma'am. If the status of the property has changed between the application date and the award date, then that has no bearing on the final award?
Not unless the applicant, unless the applicant wants to pull it, the homeowner. And I don't know if there's like, I guess it just hit my mind. I don't know if there's any other option in terms of if the county wants to keep the homes and, and they take over and say, no, we'll buy them out from the homeowner. Like, for example, in Louisiana, the state bought out the house and they put them back in the housing stock.
So my
as
question.
opposed to letting the federal government buy them out.
Commissioner
They bought
Johnson,
them out,
the next.
And they did a homeowner program and put them back in the housing stock.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. I got a very pointed question. All right, and I think Mr. Forg is here. He can probably answer some of this too. If I look at 314 Azalea, it was sold in 2019 for $14,400. It was sold in 2021 for $18,000. Now it's going to be purchased out by this home buyer program for a whopping $187,000. Now that's a wonderful investment. Mr. Forgy, wasn't this house in the land bank for sale?
314, yes, sir. Right. It's them the ones the chairman's talking about.
So how can a person purchase this house twice and then turn and sell to the federal government for a profit? He's not the original homeowner.
It's, that's the way it is.
Yeah, he's not the original homeowner.
Yeah,
That's unfair.
Is the government aware of these changes, is my question? Or are they awarding it based on the status of the property in 2017?
I think they're awarding it on the status of the property, and to that point, and believe it or not, I think what we're all saying is actually correct. I think what you have, and we all knew this was coming, like you had some folks that didn't want to wait for a federal program. They didn't. And so then you had some savvy investors that said, okay, I'll sling $14,000, $18,000 down at this. I'll pay the property taxes on it, and I'll bet on the come and see if the federal government's going to come in with a program. And those folks probably took some insurance money. They probably took their insurance money, sold the property, and then just moved on elsewhere. And in the meantime, somebody else was a savvy enough business investor to go. And what I think they do is they purchase it at its pre-disaster values. And I think it's a fairly generous, I think built into that is it's because it's meant to be helpful to folks that have been suffered as a disaster, or in this instance, perhaps that took a risk on investing in a disaster. I think that's what happened. I'm not commenting on the morality or the ethics. I think that's just what happened, if that makes sense.
But it still begs the question. It still begs the question whether or not the regs say that if the status has changed, it makes a difference.
Yes, ma'am. Ms. Bowling?
Yes, sir. I guess this is for me, well, two things. One question is for Paul, because when they took the initial applications, I was not there. So Paul, was there, did they check to see if those was the original homeowners when they did the when the applications
They
were
may have transferred
completed?
it. That may have been part of the purchase.
Mr. Forgy, I think she's directed that question to you.
When this program was started, it was all the original homeowners. This was started back in 2017, shortly after the storm. So at that point, it was all the original owners.
Okay.
But now it's not, right?
So then maybe it needs to be the thing to go back and ask GMA if, I guess, if the ownership changes, then can the property still qualify?
That's all I was asking, if the status is
Because see, I'm not aware of changes in ownership, because the applications was taken prior to me getting there, and prior to me arriving at the county. And
I'd
so
just like
I've
for
been
us to
working.
be clear on this before we do this.
I think so too.
If I could,
Yes,
my
please,
understanding of the
please,
program is if it's the original owner who was affected by the storm, they will be offered the pre-storm value. If it's a new owner, they'll be offered the current fair market value. This is minus
the post.
All right, let's hear from Mr. Forgy right now. Thank you.
This is minus the county's match, which will be passed on to the homeowner or the owner of the property. The main purpose of this program is not to make somebody whole. It's to mitigate future disasters. So it's to mitigate the damage in the floodplain and get that out of the way forever. And that's why it's going to be required to be green space. So in some of these instances where a house has been rehabbed, they're going to be offered, if it's a new owner, they're going to be offered the current fair market value minus 15%, which they probably aren't going to take, but they might. So a lot of these that are on this list, because they were applied for by the original owner, they probably aren't going to go through because nobody's going to want to sell for less than they could get if they just sold on the open market.
Thank you.
And the land bank is going to contact some of these owners in the case that they're being offered, they're going to be offered less than they're hoping to get, most
Less than what
likely.
they want.
And the land bank is going to see if we can intercede and offer more than that and reclaim the property so it can stay on the tax roll.
And save radium in other areas.
Right.
Thank you.
Yes, any area that's viable, really. So.
And then there are some of the properties I want to point. I believe two, Paul, that I got contact from. So the owners still live in Albany, but they bought another house. So we got that situation too. So where I'm one of the ladies is getting rid of the house that's on Skyline, but she bought another house in Albany already.
All right.
One final question.
Yes, thank you, Commissioner Gaines.
If you took one of these properties that, in your opinion, Mr. Forgy, has its status has changed, and you arithmized it so that we could see the difference in what it was at when the application was made in 2017, and what and who would be getting what now? Could we? That would make it a lot more clearer to us. Well, for me at least, if I could see that arithmetic, what it actually looked like in terms of dollar amount and to whom. That would help a great deal. If just for example.
That may be information that Georgia has access to, but some of this involves, some of the calculation that FEMA uses to determine what the payout is what they have spent to either fix the house or what they have spent from their insurance money. So the insurance money is deducted from this. If they were paid for the house, so we don't know, since that's a private transaction, we don't know what those numbers are.
I got you.
But if they took their insurance money and paid for something else, they bought a new car, that's going to be deducted from what they get paid for anyway.
Okay, I got you.
All right.
Yeah, because it's pre and post.
Very good, thank you. All right, let's move on to the next item. Thank you, Mr. Forgy and Ms. Bowling. Recommendation to accept federal procurement guidance under the Uniform Administrative Requirements of 2 CFR 200-.318 through 2 CFR 200.327, General Procurement Standards, and the federal GSA scheduled rates for travel retroactive back to January 1, 2017. Ms. Bowling.
Yes, sir. So the request is for the procurement to have the county procurement, and especially since we have there are so many grants now, to make the county procurement procurement threshold the same as the federal procurement threshold. And so, and how it works is for the federal threshold, you have what's referred to as the simplified acquisition threshold. And the simplified acquisition threshold goes from up to $250. So for informal procurement methods that are $10,000 and less, from the perspective of the federal procurement guidelines, you don't have to have a formal quote of any kind, as long as you believe that the price is reasonable. So that's for anything up to $10,000. Anything that's over $10,000, up to $250,000, you're only required to get 3 quotes, and you support and document those 3 quotes in the file. And the threshold just got raised every so many years. The federal government will raise it. Individual departments will request, for it to be raised. So the maximum amount under the simplified acquisition threshold at this present time under law is $250,000.
All right. Any comments, questions, or concerns from the commission? All right. Thank you very much, Ms. Bowling. Review of the state of Georgia's tiny home zoning regulation for consideration of adoption. Mr. Forgy.
All right. Good morning again.
I think that's funny every time.
Another confusing subject. So I will try and make this as clear as I can, but this is rather complicated. So first of all, a tiny home is generally defined as 400 square feet or less. And when somebody says tiny home, you all may have different ideas of what that is. Oftentimes, what you think of is a park model home. It's a tiny home on wheels that can be taken around behind a truck and put in different locations. The county, city, and county currently allow, but only in RV parks. So they are allowed somewhere, but they're not allowed everywhere. Otherwise, so a tiny home, let's talk about small homes for a second. So between 400 and 800 square feet. Most people would consider that a tiny home. I mean, most people don't live in a 500 square foot house. You can build those anywhere a house is allowed currently. Really, you can build under 400 square feet currently, but it has to meet building code, which is tricky when you get that small. So if you're building between 400 and 800 square feet, it's a lot easier to do than 400 square feet and below. If you're talking strictly tiny homes, 400 square feet and below is difficult. And the state of Georgia has tried to make it easier by adopting, the state adopted, a code that allows for certain exemptions of certain codes when you build a tiny home, anything under 400 square feet. These involve headroom in the loft and exit windows because you need an additional access point if you're in a loft. So there are certain code exemptions that they offer. If the city and county wanted to pursue this, the governments would have to adopt those codes, so we could then allow builders to build to that. Now, as I said, you could conceivably create a 400, or, well, let's say you could create a tiny home currently, but it would have to be architect designed. So some design professional puts their stamp on it that it meets all the codes. And that's difficult to do in a small house. We allow this in our zoning code because we don't regulate the size of a house. So if you want to have a small house on an R1 lot, you can do it, but people generally don't choose to have a small house because they want to maximize their profit. Most people want larger homes. I think commonly when you think of tiny homes, you might think of a tiny home development where it's not just one house on one lot, it might be 10 on one lot. And that requires some sort of apartment, CR zoning, and that's still within the realm of possibilities. We haven't had anybody propose anything. We've had lots of people talk about it. So it is conceivably possible right now. I think that if we wanted to make it even more possible, the government should consider adopting the alternative building code to allow tiny homes. You could consider allowing the recreational models, but we would not recommend it. They're built to a code, but not a building code that we recognize. So it's built in a factory, but it's not to a code that we recognize. So I think where they are now in RV parks is fine. We don't want them to be mobile anyway. And something that a lot of people don't know or a lot of people don't talk about is these small houses, the RV park model homes. The Association of Park Model Homes does not recommend people live in them. So the association governing this particular type of tiny homes says you shouldn't live in them. They're, for temporary housing out at the lake on the weekends or whatever, but they're not to be lived in full time, according to the association. So there's a place for them, and there's a certain type of person that might be interested in living in smaller homes, but the park model homes in particular, I think, are best in RV parks.
Quick question.
Yes, sir.
How would this affect the ag when they can only have like one single family residence per ag building? Could they build some of these for their workers or something like that?
No. We could look at something like that. It could be used as an accessory dwelling. So you could have one as an accessory dwelling. There are rules about accessory dwellings. It has to be
like an in-law suite?
Yes.
Yeah.
It has to be less than half the size of the house, which shouldn't be difficult with 400 to 800 square feet. But in some instances, if you have a 1,000 square foot main house, it has to be 500 or less.
So the whole man cave and she shed can be realized with one of these?
Not with one on wheels, no.
Well, yeah, without wheels, stick built, foundation.
Right. It could be, but then generally you're looking at something that's maybe it has a bathroom, but it probably wouldn't have a full kitchen. So it wouldn't necessarily be a dwelling unit. It would just be an accessory unit with plumbing and electrical.
For the money, just go ahead and build your 1,000 square feet. I said, for the money, build your 1,000 square feet, and you'd have a house.
And that's a real issue because a lot of these, this one on the picture of the fact sheet that I gave you, you can see that it's nice looking. To build something like this that's 400 square feet is going to cost you proportionally more than it does to build 1,000 square feet. So a lot of people aren't going to build them because they don't want to invest in something that's smaller, has a limited audience, and it costs proportionally more.
Right.
I think Monroe County had an issue of, actually one of the commissioners up there is a developer as well, wanted to put in had some agricultural land that was zoned ag, wanted to put a tiny home community there, more upscale for people who wanted, I need a place to have my mail delivered and a home to live in, but I travel a lot, I work remotely, I don't need a big house, I want somebody to keep up with my yard, but I don't want to live in an apartment or some condominium complex, and gives them the freedom to live independently, not having a lot of space. They were going to be higher end. I see the novelty of it, but at the same time, I don't think the neighbors did. So there was a lot of contention around breaking up the continuity of the homes in that area. And so I think it's something that may be worth future discussion about this, where they can and can't go. I know I wouldn't want a 400 square foot house next to me.
But if you buying it by the pound, 900 square feet or 1,000 feet, build them before it, and you'll have enough room within 900 or 1,000 square feet to That'd be better than taking a chance on a 400,000 square feet or less one for the money.
Well, there certainly is a market for them. It may not be a very big market, but in any housing market, there are people who might be interested in it. It may only be, 1%, but that's still people who would buy it.
All right, very good. Thank you all very much. Thank you, Mr. Forgy. Recommendation to declare the listed vehicles and equipment as surplus and authorizing the disposal of or sale of same via an online auction. Mr. McCoy.
Recommend to approve.
All right, any comments or questions or discussion? Being none, Mr. McCoy, you have anything else?
Yes, I would like direction on the tiny homes. Would you all like to see that on the regular meeting?
What do you think, Commissioner Johnson?
Yeah, I would like to get ahead of the ball, sir, and go ahead and pass it down the zoning before it got out of hand.
You get like a sample ordinance or something?
Yes, sir. A sample ordinance, how it would look.
We have consensus amongst the commission. We'd like to get a sample ordinance for us to consider and discuss. I would suggest we get it at another work session so we can talk through it.
Sure.
Everybody good with that?
Yeah, I'd be curious for us to figure out what we really want with it, whether we're just gonna limit where they can go, or some other aspect of it.
I'm assuming they're popping up everywhere now.
Downsizing and all that kind of stuff.
It's wild. Never thought that we'd have to pass an ELF ordinance.
Wait till your kids come home from college.
That's right. All right, very good. We have consensus on that issue. Anything else, Mr. McCoy?
No, sir. Thank you.
All right, Commissioner Johnson.
Nothing further, sir.
Commissioner Edwards.
One quick thing. Mr. Norman, he's gone now, but if I could ask you to put on the agenda of discussing coal. I know next week I have an issue in my area with the apartment complex with dumpsters, and it's kind of like an ongoing process where they don't have like a daily person or weekly maintenance man to come in after the dumpsters empty. Sofas, everything, the debris is still around it. But if the code can look at where, I think I mentioned this early on, about code having some enforcement power. And I think what I mean by that is like citation, if I was speeding, when I'm speeding and I get a ticket, I gotta pay that whatever, $50, $25. So in this case, I have kind of exhausted the conversation with Ms. Bowles, code enforcement, et cetera, because it's private property, even down to the environmental health that's going out there. But now the complex knows, and it's not just in this particular area. We see it all around with convenience stores, with trash around the dumpsters, et cetera. But we have no authority in doing anything. Even in this situation, code give them a warning, and they say it's 7 days. You have to have it cleaned up. Well, we know next week that the dumpster guy's coming, but the trash is still around the dumpster. So then even talking to Miss Judy or Ms. Bowles, even if we had a new ordinance that this particular property gonna be grandfathered in. But I guess the question was straight to the point is there a possibility where code has, citation powers where if you've given Victor Edwards 7 warnings and that 8th warning, it's a $50 fine. So that's what I'm looking for.
I don't know the answer.
So I want to have a discussion if we can, if we're, Norman, our new code director, and.
I think that's a good idea.
Okay.
Yeah. Can we have a discussion about that, Mr. McCoy? Bring in.
I wouldn't put it past mandating that they have an additional dumpster placed there if it becomes a habitual problem, because obviously there's more volume than their one dumpster that they're paying for to handle.
Brick Point.
It's a legal dumpster.
Along Nottingham, the apartments there between Burger King and Nottingham, that becomes a huge overflow problem with mattresses. And I know you're not supposed to do it. It's the law. You're not supposed to put that stuff outside a dumpster, but they do every time there's a move out. That becomes the area. So how are apartment complexes supposed to solve for that? Are supposed to have a roll-off out there on top of a dumpster for household garbage? The more you put out there, the more the general public, I've heard of a lot of people in the city decide they're not gonna pay for trash pickup, so they won't have a can, and then they'll just go find a public dumpster somewhere and dump it in there. So
Yep.
certainly, I mean, do we put a waste transfer station somewhere in the city so people can?
I just wanna like have a discussion where, cause this been going on now a while, it's like, they know that we don't have any authority because it's private property. So,
Yep.
And then even with Commissioner Russell, what you saying, we have kinda, politely asked them to put a bigger dumpster, and they was like, well, the cost of the dumpster, even talking to, our county administrator, Mr. McCoy, early on, we brainstormed about maybe asking them to put up a privacy fence, and the next question from that owner was like, are we gonna pay for the privacy fence? So it's kinda like now, it's like rhetorical, it's just going around in a circle, and the neighborhood, even down to, I talked to the school crossing guard a couple of weeks ago, she said, well, Mr. Edwards, I see people after they drop their kids off at Radium, they stop and take their trash over there. So it's like who's and how can we kind of, come with that answer.
All right, very good. All right, thank you very much, Commissioner Edwards. Commissioner Newsom?
Nothing further, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much. Commissioner Jones?
Nothing, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for asking.
Thank you. Commissioner Gaines?
Nothing, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Gray?
I'd just like to extend my condolences to the family of Butch Mosley, former superintendent of Dougherty County Schools. He passed away yesterday at 80 years old. So
I did not know that.
Certainly want to extend our condolences. I would think it would be a consensus to do so.
Appreciate you.
Certainly. I have one thing, wanted to read the letter I got from the Mayor of Americas here. Chairman Cohilas, on August 17, 2021, the remnants of Tropical Storm Fred produced several tornadoes in the early and mid-morning hours. One of these tornadoes hit Americas in Sumter County. It's an EF1 tornado. The residential part of the city of Americas lasted about 2 minutes. During those 2 minutes, there was significant damage to trees and more than 40 homes between Sharon Circle and Pine Avenue. During the early morning hours, the city of Americas police, fire, and public works departments responded to the area and monitored the situations. Thankfully, there were no lives lost, and cleanup began as the Mayor of Americas reached out to you and requested assistance to clean up the debris. Without hesitation, you sent help. On behalf of the City Council and staff of the City of Americas, I want to thank you for your generous donation of time, equipment, and manpower to help with this emergency situation. It was hard work. We're thankful for the assistance. Again, thank you for your support. The City of Americas can never assist you in your area. Please do not hesitate to contact me, Mayor Blunt, and this thanks should be received by staff, Mr. McCoy, and all of our folks that helped out in Public Works and otherwise. All I did was communicate relative to the message, but I'm very thankful for our partnerships in emergency management and our willingness to help out with other communities, because it certainly pays off in the long run. With that being said, we're adjourned.